Don't mind it anyway. Hey guys, welcome. Red morning. 6 minutes late because Carl and I decided to have this podcast start early and forgot to invite you. How you doing, Carl?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm on day 30 of not drinking, which is kind of a pain in the ass. But it's been a bad month not to drink because there's been cause for celebration. Like if hedge funds lose like 28 billion because of a bunch of dudes on Reddit deciding to go counter on their stock. There's been cause for like we got a new president in who isn't on Twitter 24/7, which is good because then my newspapers aren't filled with his tweets. There's been some cause for concern in that, the world is going to shit. They're talking COVID mutations that are not going to be covered by the vaccine. So I think we're going to be in like permanent lockdown.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's been cause for everything.
Dude, I don't even know where to start. You got stop mentioning COVID on these things because I'm gonna rant my ass off on it. Like they just did a thing where they're canceling domestic and international flights, and you're forced to pay hotels 2 grand to quarantine when you first land, if you're coming back from wherever on your own dime. And I'm just like, I don't know what the end goal is, but clearly the end goal is we just want Amazon to become the Tyrell Corporation for everybody, which I'm sure will end out
Well, to
well.
be
I've seen
honest,
2 movies on it already.
if they have that strict restriction, that sounds like a good moment to buy Canadian airline stock.
Yep. Here's hoping anyway. But I don't want to brag about it because if it tanks, I'm an idiot. But if it does really well, then I'm gonna get everybody else into my grift. So I'd rather just say don't.
Hey, dude, I just tweeted out yesterday that I threw $1,000 at GameStop just for fun.
Oh my god,
I
those
don't think your movement.
yeah, those are absolutely awesome. It's like Occupy Wall Street, but effective and with autism. I just can't
Yeah,
believe
like,
they haven't
I
stole it
love
from
it.
4chan.
Well, I just think it's a brilliant idea, man. It's also the first stock where I made 100% return in 8 hours that I bought while having sex.
Yeah, I'm assuming everybody in chat, you guys know what this is about. If you're confused when we're talking about GameStop short sales and that, just let us know and we'll do some explanations. But yeah, it's funny. I was actually noticing this morning. There's this, I don't know, some feminist, like feminist friend account or something on Twitter. And somebody was pointing out how she's basically bootlicking for hedge funds as opposed to like retail investors that have been opted out of the market for like 20 years. And I recognized she was that same chick that shit on me for my dragging a girl to happiness kicking and screaming thing. And I just realized most feminists and social justice warriors are cunts. Like they don't care. They just want to be on the arguing side of whatever. Just piss in the punch bowl. It's kind of freeing.
I do think that's a factor, but you have to keep in mind that if you look at people who kind of make money or clout off attention, they will always be on like the controversial side of things.
Really? I
It's
didn't
like,
think you pictured
well,
that around the
I
sphere.
occasionally hold like contrarian opinions on things,
Mm-hmm.
but generally those are well founded. Here it's just like, okay, I'm technically a communist, but I'm going to argue in favor of hedge funds here just to get some clout.
Yeah.
Because those misogynists use the C word on Reddit, so fuck them.
I don't know. And I can't even blame her because it's like we not us, like not you and me, but like our little corner of the internet does it so badly. And this is kind of what gets into the topic here. So here's my thought. You do some contrarian shit to get clout. Trump was a great example. Everybody hated Trump. So being the MAGA guy got you a bunch of clout. And then once you get that clout, you realize it's not the right kind of clout. It's like everybody just sitting is rubberneckers. I just want to watch this train wreck. This guy's shilling for Trump and they're going to jail and oh, this is going to be great. And then you realize that that audience is the worst audience to have because they're fickle, they're emotional, and they'll throw you under the bus in a heartbeat if you ever say anything that hurts their feelings. But people keep doing it. And I don't know why. I don't know why.
Well, the biggest problem with it is it's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
Because what happens with it is, okay, you may sell some shit like for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, or in this case, like 4 years. But then when that's over, you either need to pivot or you need to keep that shit going because you've now grown accustomed to a lifestyle by selling this shit that, and you don't want to go back to being like the digital nomad living in like a third-rate hostel. You want to keep your nice podcast studio. You want to keep your big ass audience. You want to keep the invitations coming for news channels. And how do you do that? It's like guys who are still like going on about Brexit. You know what? It's over. It happened. The people voted. Stop analyzing every little fucking thing that's happening now from the lens of, well, this shows that Remain was wrong about Brexit because this thing happened. Brexit is over. Give it the fuck up.
Yeah. They managed to keep a good fight going. They kept that anti-Brexit talk going at least as long as the anti-Trump stuff, though, at least. I think, when was the Brexit vote? 3 years ago? 2 years ago?
It was about the same time as Trump, like 2016, 2017.
Oh, right. That was when the alt-right push for, like, everybody was going to turn into 1940s Germany thing happened. Dude, such hyperbole.
Yeah, that's when you were going to get like an alt-right Austrian president, an alt-right German election, an alt-right this, and alt-right that,
And
everything except like Brexit and like everything except like Trump and Brexit went tits up.
Mm-hmm. Status quo always wins in the end. But this reminds me, and I'm trying to keep it on topic as best I can because it's so much fun to rant about this nonsense. But do you know that meme where what's the smallest bit of power you've seen go to somebody's head? It's like always common. They always ask questions like that on Reddit and shit like that. It'll always be somebody gets assistant manager at Best Buy and then they turn around and just shit on everybody. I think this is that same phenomenon, but just in like a branding space and just for men and feminists and that whole gender war nonsense.
Well, it's I don't know what to say about it because it's so fun to rant about it. But we have a good question in chat. Like, what do you think about Trump Jr., AOC, Bernie, etc., siding on retail sides? Is it populism? Do they really care, or just enemy of my enemy? I think it's a mix of all. I think it's populism, and I think if you look at Bernie and AOC, they kind of have an established track record of being anti-Wall Street. So I think with them, it's more believable, at least, than it is with Trump Jr., because he's been the beneficiary of Wall Street all his life. So, but I think there is a case to be made that politics in general is pro-Wall Street, obviously. Like, if someone comes and tells you, okay, you fix this for us, we'll give you $200 million, then people are going to fix that shit. But I think this Reddit thing is an example of that. Now people actually have the power to fuck things shit up for the establishment. And Reddit was like, I meant it seriously when I said Reddit was like, okay, we got Trump elected for 4 years. What do we want to fuck up next? And it's like, think we could bankrupt Wall Street? It's kind of like the Joker in Batman. It's not about the money, it's about the point.
Sending a message, yeah. Oh, dude, and there's this guy. I can't remember. They've actually got like a Joker on there. I can't remember. Somebody help me out. There's a Reddit username of this guy. I guess he put $500,000 into GameStop.
Yeah, deep fucking value.
That's the guy. Yeah, and now they're like cheering him on because his stock inflated to like 26 million, but he didn't care. So
he's still holding.
Yeah, and he's still holding. It went down from 26 to 13. I think he's now at 8 million now, which I mean, after 2-3 million, who cares, right? And they're treating him as like the God Emperor. He's literally the new Trump, and I have a feeling he's going to be exactly the same as like Peterson and Trump. He's going to be the God Emperor for like 15 minutes, and then they're going to vilify him at the end. I'm just thinking because I'm noticing that pattern.
That would be typical Reddit, but at the same time, though, I'm actually a fan of this type of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was trying to make this point earlier on Reddit because some cocksucker on here called me a communist last week. And I'm a fan of capitalism with accountability and consequences.
Yeah.
That means if you fuck up your leverage on pork bellies and your hedge fund goes tits up, there is no government bailout. You're bankrupt. And if you were negligent, you get prosecuted. If you get convicted, you go to jail. And not like summer camp jail. Like federal just having maximum security. Exactly. And I'm a big fan of that because capitalism without bankruptcy is like Catholicism without hell.
I like that. The whole thing. And the part I feel bad about is guys I don't think know the stock market. So like once word of this got out, everybody started throwing money at it, and I think they missed the point. Like by the time you hear about a stock tip, it's already too late. You need to be the guy that was in before something goes like popular on like a trending tab or something like that. So I know a lot of people are going to lose money, but it's always the same people that lose money. It's stupid, emotional people that jump onto bandwagons. Hedge
I told you
funds,
about
I hope they go down though.
my first stuff. Yeah, but my first, I've told you this story before in private. Like, I started trading stocks back in like 2008, like right after the financial crisis, and I
Right.
lost like 100 grand of one of my mentor's money.
Yeah.
And I called him. I was nervous about calling him, and he's like, "Dude, I lost like 100 grand of your money." He's like, "Oh, good. I'm glad you lost 100 grand of my money. If you'd actually made out well on that, you might have thought you were good for anything."
Hey, and there's the point too. Bull markets always make overconfident investors. Bull market's the big one, right? The good one, and bear market's the scary one.
Yeah. But the thing with it is just that I've always been there's like this expression: the harder I work, the luckier I get. Because with everything you're successful at in life, there's a certain element of your work, and there's a certain element of you were the right person with the right idea at the right place at the right time.
Right.
Because you can have the world's best idea, but if it's the wrong time, it's the wrong place, whatever, that's not going to matter much. What's going to matter is those four factors generally do more than the other ones. But if you luck out and you do it on your first hit, you have no idea about these other four, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm successful because I'm fucking awesome, because I'm great." And that creates an overconfident asshole that no one wants to deal with, who then goes on most likely to lose all that money afterwards.
Yeah, Dunning-Kruger. Absolute Dunning-Kruger. Don't know what you don't know, overconfident because you've never seen failure. That's everything too, even sexual dynamics, like naturals. There was always that sphere argument about naturals have it, or not sphere, I guess the black pill or MGTOW, whatever. One of those loser types. They argue about naturals. Oh, they're 6'2" Chads and they've been fucking since they were 13. They don't know the struggle. And I'm like, why would you want to be that guy? That guy has no idea how mercenary the sexual marketplace can be. So when he hits a hardship, let's say he's 40 with 2 kids, gets a beer belly, and all of a sudden his wife fucks the pool boy, he has no idea how to deal with that. I know. My stepdad was that guy. And I'll tell you right now, the way they deal with it is crying in front of their 18-year-old stepson. And it's not cool. It's not cool. Like, I don't know why people would want it. It's that cheat code shit. And I know it's all just pablum for us. Like, yeah, just do the work, have the cheat codes, check your ego. But I'm like, I see how this stuff actually plays out. And it's never pretty. But it's never pretty later on, not right away.
Well, it's the same thing. I've been having a lottery ticket in for like the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've never won, but I played every week. And I'm really, really happy that I didn't win that money like 10, 15 years ago. Because I would have lost that money in a drug-fueled binge of cocaine and hookers in like 6 months, man. I would have been one of those cautionary stories you read about in the newspaper. Won the Powerball jackpot, is now broke. It's been 3 months.
Yeah. Oh, and it's even worse. Like, that's a good outcome too. The bad ones are when all of a sudden the guy gets an estranged family because they all think they're entitled to their pieces. Or I've heard stories of like guys' families trying to hire hitmen to kill them to get the lottery money and shit. Like, imagine finding out a little bit of success and your whole family turns on you. Like, everybody you've loved since you were a baby. Just chewing on your carcass to get their little bit of meat, you know?
Oop, I haven't heard those stories, but that sounds kind of. Can you imagine that your mom is like trying to poison you at family dinner?
Yeah. Oh, dude. Like estate, I'm sure you've seen at least once or twice in your life some kind of like estate splitting of the assets after, you know, grandma dearest dies. I've seen it in my family, my girl's family too, and just like that little chance at success and people just go feral on each other. It could be like my sister. I've known her for 50 years and they'll still just like, fuck that bitch.
Yeah, luckily enough, most of my family died broke, or the ones who've died so far.
It's almost making the case that you should die with the last $10 in your hand. Keep your family together.
Well, you know, our argument with Well, our big fight last time someone died in my family is like, who has to cart all this shit off to the trash heap?
Well, at least you guys are doing that. For us, it would probably be more like, he did what? All right. Fair enough. Give us a chance to get drunk and rip into each other. Our Christmas tradition of going around the circle and pushing somebody's buttons until they freak out, and then just going around the circle and doing that one at a time. Dude, I honestly, and I know it sounds bad, and my girl saw it once when we went down for Christmas. She's like, you guys are just brutal to each other. I'm like, yeah, and that's why we're a tight family. Because, like, the envelope has been pushed as far as it can go. We know exactly how far you can push before you get a knife in the neck. So we're good.
Man, we had the same thing when my brother brought his fiance home for the first time.
Oh.
And everyone was on their best behavior for day one.
Mm-hmm.
And day two, we just started ripping it to her as well. And she was fucking horrified.
Dude, it's a great introduction, though, man. Like, at that point, you can't think of a better icebreaker. Actually, I'll do this super chat, and I'll tell you the story about when my girl first met my mom. Thanks, you guys. You helped me realize a lot of some things, create good mental models. I believe that people should stay away from the sphere. Dude, that's, like, pretty good advice right there. Get the hell away from us. Get away from all of this. It'll rot your brain.
Well, I completely agree on that. It's just that we had this talk back during upstream Twitter.
Oh, classic.
And the whole thing that was so funny with that to me was that some of those guys had seen a little bit of success. They were starting to get clout. They were starting to get followers, decent sized, like 3, 4, 5K followings.
Mm-hmm.
And it went to their head and they were like, the problem with this space are the gurus. We need to get rid of the gurus. So we're going to create a space with no gurus where we are the gurus.
Dude, that's like the driving analogy. Everybody who's driving faster than me is an asshole, and everybody driving slower than me is too fucking slow. Yeah, the whole thing.
It's the exact same thing.
But yeah, that's the part I didn't get either, because it's not a zero-sum game in this space. Unless you have nothing to offer, then getting rid of everybody who's better than you makes you the king of shit mountain, whatever. But like standing on the shoulders of the giants is a perfectly good strategy. Everybody here offers something. Even Pat Stedman has something that you can build on. The how to survive prison with radiator wine.
Tale.
What's that?
It's a great cautionary tale.
Yeah,
I look forward to seeing him drink toilet wine with an ice cube.
Plus, I guess my girl found there's prisoners making like prison burritos on TikTok. And she goes, how do the prisoners get a TikTok account and a cell phone? I'm like, I don't know. I was kind of more impressed. I guess he took like the wire from like a fan and he put it onto a plate, and then he used the electric charge to cook like tortillas and tacos that he made with like ramen. I was like, I don't know what they're doing in prison, but these guys need to work for SpaceX.
Well, there's a YouTube channel called Larry Lawton. He has this series called Prison Cooking, where he goes through like, how do you make pasta in jail? How do you cook shit? How do you make one of those spindle thingies that you use to get heat?
Oh, nice.
I mean, the most impressive one was when he cooked a pizza with a microwave oven, using like crushed Doritos as the crust.
Dude, that's some ingenuity stuff. And what was that? There was another guy too who did like the workout thing, working out and eating with top shelf ramen. Who was that guy? It's something with a K. It was a workout dude, big buff dude. Khalib.
I haven't seen that one.
Kali. I think his name was like Kali or something like that. But yeah, that was like that brief period in 2015 where going to prison was the new punk. Which I love that meme, by the way. Just calling mundane, stupid shit the new punk. You know, it never ceases to make me laugh.
I have to say though, I did love that like 2-month part of the Manosphere where like the big thing was I went to jail.
Oh, I know. I went to jail. You can learn from me. Well, I guess I could. Sure, why not? I don't know. It's shame is. I think shame is the part that's missing. You know what I mean? Like dignity. Because jail's not supposed to be something you're proud of.
Dignity. I think it's more like you usually go to jail because you're an arrogant asshole with no risk reward.
Mm-hmm.
let's say, foundation for risk reward, and then you come out and you show you still have no foundation for risk reward, and you're still an arrogant asshole.
But you've just lowered
Not sure if that's
the activities you're willing to do. So if anything, you're just a pacified version of a criminal.
It's just one of those strange things, and it's like that's the weird thing with the manosphere, though. Speaking about sabotaging yourself, it's like you make virtues out of things that shouldn't really be virtues and that really shouldn't give you a lot of credit. Like, I'm just waiting for a guy to come up like, well, you know what? I spent 40 years of my life as a smack addict, but now I'm out, and I'm going to show you how to pick up crackheads.
Well, I know that was that one guy, the one who has like 9 kids, and he brags about that all the time. To me, I always thought, isn't that something your wife should brag about? Like, I've been pregnant longer than you've been playing video games. What do you got? Or something like that. It just seems for him, it's like, yeah, I just have to have sex once every 9 months. It's like, I don't think that's an achievement. Talking about how little he has to do during the day. I'm like, well,
man.
Yeah. I don't know. The whole thing is weird. I don't like all of it.
It kind of goes back to, though, like, I actually liked Sad Petman better.
Sad Petman. Oh, yeah. I keep forgetting all the clever little names he's got there. The prison thing, I was thinking about, and I want to expand why I think it's like a dignity thing. It's the same thing we were just talking about with the clout chasers. I'm going to piss off a bunch of feminists. A bunch of guys will follow me because they like rubbernecking this train wreck. And then they end up being a clown. Like, your whole reason to be there is just to piss people off and have people laugh at how you're going to get banned from social media because you keep dropping Nazi references because that's what pisses off the journalist establishment. And the whole thing is just Dancing Pete. He dances for quarters. You know, that Simpsons reference?
Yeah, I actually thought that was kind of, because I remember Milo when he was a big deal.
Mm-hmm. And he had value. Like, he knew what he was talking about on the things he knew.
Yeah, to some extent. But then once they brought him on Bill Maher, and I think Bill and the panel gave him a fair shake.
Mm-hmm.
But he just couldn't rile them because everyone was like, okay, you know, we've seen the I'm just going to trigger you act. We know what you're doing, so we're just going to not get triggered and talk to you on the issues, and he fell flat.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Bill Maher's been a comedian. Do you think he's not used to a little heckling? Like, come on, dude. Yeah, Shapiro did that too.
Guys were sitting there. You mean Ben Shapiro or some other Shapiro?
No, Ben Shapiro, because he's always used to like using his facts and logic argument, whatever. And then they put him on, I think it was CNBC or something, with an actual like economist who's been around for like 50 years from Britain, so he doesn't play that stupid nonsense. And just got flabbergasted because somebody actually knew what he was talking about. And I realize a lot of these guys, they forget that not everybody is a mental midget. And they actually have some people who know what they're talking about, and they kind of crumble on these ones.
Yeah, and it also goes back to, like, I was speaking to how fun my life is during COVID. I was going through a study earlier on adolescent marijuana use, of all things. And one of the things I kind of noticed is that I was looking at how that was tweeted out, how it was reported by a journalist, and then what the study actually said. And what it turned out is, because they were basically measuring when you start using, well, the correlation between illicit drug use, alcohol use, and cigarettes, and antisocial behavior and depression, anxiety. And they were kind of looking into, like, okay, what are the life outcomes measured, you know, financial, educational, relationship-wise, 20 years down the line. It's a huge-ass fucking study.
Right.
And what you kind of landed on is that they kind of failed to take one thing into account.
What's that?
Which is, if a 13-year-old has a fucking drinking problem, there's obviously something going on in his life that leads to him needing to fucking drink.
Oh, so they're treating the symptom as the cause. Or I guess the symptom.
They're saying, well, the argument is that, okay, you know, you have worse life outcomes if you start using drugs / alcohol early.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can kind of buy into that, but if you have a poor social upbringing where, like, your parents are strung out, they're beating the crap out of you, etc., then it's pretty obvious you're going to start drinking early or using drugs early, or if you're a girl, having sex early. and getting pregnant early and getting married early so you'll get the fuck out of that house.
Mm-hmm. So they're missing the point by focusing on... Yeah.
Yeah, they're missing the point of they're focusing on one thing, but if you hadn't read the study and you just accepted kind of the abstract of it, because that's one of those things I've been noticing, and this is a bit choppy, I know, is that a lot of people just read what the journalists say in their articles, and they argue based on that. Those are your garden variety guys on social media, or even worse, they'll see someone post something on Facebook and they argue based on what's in the Facebook posts.
I'll argue it's even worse than that. They read the headline. They don't even read the article.
Yeah, and then you have your next level guys. These are the guys who read the actual fucking article. Then you have your Ben Shapiro's who read the abstract. And then you have your 60-year-old British economists who've read the actual study plus another 3,000 studies on the same topic and actually spend time writing and thinking about this stuff.
Yeah. But they get drowned out because they're not good at branding, because they're too busy just like dry rote information. So they need a situation where everybody is willfully ignorant.
More popular than my blog.
Yeah.
My Twitter is more popular than my blog, dude. People don't want to read that shit.
Nope. And I don't blame them, I guess. If you have 500,000 Manosphere accounts ranting about how Whammon ain't shit, Carl's dissertation on why quantitative easing will cause you to maybe not buy a home in the next 5 years, nobody's going to pay attention to that. They got shit to do. And that's tomorrow Homer's problem to worry about that, not today Homer. Today Homer needs to worry about this feminist that decided to put a dress on a dude in Vogue magazine. Or to stop selling razors because they don't like dudes.
Yeah, and it kind of comes back to the fact that in the manosphere, too, it's much more lucrative to focus on guys in the anger phase who are in the Whammon ain't shit phase, as opposed to guys who, okay, you know what, I was pissed at Whammon, I realized I had to work on myself, I put some work in, I'm moving down those 5 stages there.
Yeah, my expectations were out of whack, and that's where the anger's coming from. There's all kinds of great self-reflection to pull out.
Yeah, and then you come to the thing with, like, you know, Whammon are Whammon and Whammon are humans, so you just have to take into account that they're not rational. And here's a rough model for how to interact with them. It's not always going to work, but it will be more successful than what I was doing before. So I'm going to try this new shit. And then you find out, okay, the new shit works marginally better. So now I'm going to start a YouTube account and start doing a podcast on my model that I stole from this other dude, except I did it with sunglasses on while he had, you know, I'm going to do it with, what are these called again? I'm going to do it with aviators because the other guy was using Wayfarers, and that's what makes me different. He rents from a Honda Civic. I got an Accord. This is a totally new brand, man. I'm going to make bank off this and become a digital nomad.
See, now I don't even have a problem with all that.
And 3 months off the line, he's like is taking shots at Rolo because he's been creating content for 4 months now and thinks he knows better than a guy who's spent way too much of his life writing on that fucking blog and talking and thinking about this. And he figures out that, okay, you know what? I have to shank Rolo at the chow line because otherwise I won't be able to grow my audience. And then he figured out, okay, now I can do the same thing as Rolo, but I can't beat him on Twitter, so I'm going to go on TikTok and do it there instead. And he builds a TikTok audience. Then he monetizes that, and suddenly he makes 200 grand instead of, you know, the 12 grand he made last year at Wendy's. And then he throws everything into Dogecoin because he thinks that's going to be the next great thing, and he bankrupts, and then he has a meltdown about how the manosphere ain't shit.
You have receipts? I have receipts. Damn it, I gotta make another How's It Going Carl episode. Those are always fun. See, that's my problem. I hate that. It's not... Whatever. 4 month in, superhero, I get that stuff. It's that not a single industry has ever gotten ahead by, like, just shitting on everybody else being worse than you. Like, lawyers, common law. Say, this guy did this decision, this guy did this decision. I can be a better lawyer guy by, like, understanding all these decisions and then making new shit on top of it. Doctors. Hey, this guy discovered about hypothermia because he subjected a lot of Chinese prisoners to, like, freezing therapy. So, hey, now I know how to help people who are dying in the river. It's like there's this constant iterative process where everybody builds on everybody else's, but it's only seemingly here that everybody thinks that they're the god of man. and that everybody else was wrong, and that 3 months in, just past I just got out of the anger phase, guys. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Like everybody else has figured it out. Just do what the other guy did. Add 2 things on top of it. There's your brand differentiation. Standing on the shoulders of giants.
Well, that's why Aristotle is my favorite philosopher. Because there's a story about him that he had every philosophical text that had ever been written in Greece at that time at his house.
Right.
And everyone was like, Aristotle, why aren't you writing any philosophy of your own? And he was like, well, I'm not done reading what everyone else has written. I want to read everything before I start writing. And that used to be kind of like a rite of passage. Doctorates are still, well, anything in higher education is still built on that to some extent.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because to get a PhD, you have to defend your PhD thesis, don't you?
Yeah, and you also have to do like a huge like literature survey where you find everyone else who's ever done research into your narrow specific topic, and you have to include them and be like, okay, we're going to lean on this guy because his study was was better executed than this guy, and it's got better verification. It's been messing up my terminology. It's been too long since I dropped out of that fucking PhD program.
Replicated?
Yeah, it's been replicated. It's been verified. We've tested it. It's on solid academic grounds, and you have to do all those source critiques. And once you get there, you start to realize that, okay, you know what? I have a master's degree in this topic, but I don't know shit.
Yeah, it's that little bit of humility. I don't know. And guys don't get it. And I wish I could just say it was an American thing, because God knows how many Canadians like to junk on Americans for being the loud, obnoxious ones, but we're no different here. I don't think Europe's different there. Asia seems to be the only one that doesn't have it, because as soon as some guy steps out of line, the Chinese government decides to send him to vacation. Hey, speaking of which, did they ever find Jack Ma, or is he still missing?
Who? Oh, yeah.
He's Alibaba guy. Oh, he's back? Okay.
Yeah, he said it was nothing with the Chinese government. He just needed a break. That means it was probably something to do with the Chinese government, but, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say. That's like, yeah, I'm retiring here because of my health and to spend more time with my family. Right. Has nothing to do with that Epstein Island thing. Gotcha. I guess back to the topic. I was thinking too, so for the average person, what's the takeaway for this? Like, yeah, it's great, but not everybody is going to make a Manosphere brand sitting in a Honda Civic calling Rollo an asshole because you figured out that working out is a good thing. And he doesn't do trend because why is a 50-year-old man not yoked as fuck? So what does he know? Most guys are just normal lives, have jobs, maybe start their own business that has nothing to do with, masculinity and whatever. What do they take from it? And I think it's the same lesson everybody does, because I'm pretty sure this stupid sphere nonsense of guys having it all figured out with all this bravado plays out in every little office space anyway.
Oh, it does. And like some guy was tweeting the other day, like when the Manosphere goes mainstream, Rollo's going to have to cut his hair. And I was like, shit, people are talking about the Manosphere going mainstream. Who's having the meltdown now? Because every time there's talk of that, someone has to crown himself king of the Manosphere and the spokesperson for the Manosphere, and then that fucker has a public meltdown.
Mm-hmm. Ends up on a couple morning shows where a bunch of middle-aged soccer moms are like, look at these man children. This is why you can't get a date after the divorce. buy some Gillette razors, here's some white wine, and one of those Peloton bicycles. We'll see you after the break when cats do cute cat things. Oh, God, I hate that grift. The media grift is brutal.
Yeah, but I'm kind of thinking that's what our society is built on. It's just very, very obvious in the Manosphere. Mm-hmm. That everyone just keeps pushing a single narrative. Everyone is just staying on brand. And for some reason, they repeat the same thing. And if people like hearing the same thing, they'll keep buying the same thing. And that's a decent living. Kind of like the same thing, like when Elizabeth Warren went out, sent a letter to the SEC, like, you have to make sure stocks are traded on fundamentals. Bitch, Tesla. These stocks are, Tesla has to make earnings for 1,600 years to defend that valuation. Like most of Twitter, it has $1 billion valuation. It doesn't make money.
Mm-hmm.
Snapchat has $1 billion valuation. It doesn't make money. Most biotech companies don't make money and have $1 billion valuations.
Didn't
What
YouTube
are
just get in the
fundamentals?
black like last year too for their profit?
Well, I could be wrong here, but last time I checked, uh, the whole thing about buying a share in a company was to have part of the earnings. If your company isn't earning money, what are you buying a part of here? It's
Mm-hmm.
like a game of who's the biggest idiot, and whoever buys the last stock it's like a pyramid scheme basically, and that's what it's become. It's not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that's because we have too much productivity now, if that makes sense. Because I mean, if you think of it this way, let's just use money as a one-to-one like value or productivity. I know it's not, but whatever for the sake of argument here. So we can produce X amount of things, so there's X amount of dollars in circulation. Back in the day when it was human labor, that's fine. And then oil came around, and now 1 gallon of oil can do 20,000 hours of labor. I can't remember, or 1 barrel of oil. That was a huge productivity boom. Everybody's quality of life went up. Everybody got to buy, that's when conspicuous consumption came in. Now with the internet, we've kind of amplified that again. Now I don't know the 1 hour of internet equals 20,000 man hours, whatever the fucking number is. Now we're at a point where people have so much money and so much surplus that essentially it's like, well, what do I do with this? Man, I'll take a chance on this. And it's like you said, it's literally playing the lottery with tech companies. And venture capitalists even say this, I'll put 1,000 shares into every IPO I see in the tech thing. Because all I need is one of them to become the next Facebook and I'll be fine. Which is most likely why you have some stupid app that nobody's ever heard of with like a $50 valuation that hasn't even had a customer yet,
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you, and it's what's happening with cryptocurrency too, because people are like, okay, you know what? If this is the next Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll do fine. And it's always this future thing, and it kind of goes back to why Rothschild said once upon a time that buy when there's blood in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Because I told you this privately, I think virtually everything in the market right now is overvalued with very few exceptions.
Oh, 100%
Because
agree. 100%.
there are some industries that are unnaturally depressed, but there's usually extra risk. Like I've told you, I'm positive about the pot industry, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
But my reasoning behind that is you have a situation where it's illegal in the largest markets. You already have an established market.
Right.
So once it becomes legal, that's going to be a domino effect, because once the US does that federally, then it goes off as a restricted substance in the UN as well. That opens the door for everyone else. And once they see the amount of tax income, they're going to want a piece of that. So, and they're depressed now just because
of
just
market
because
manipulation from the government, essentially.
Yeah, essentially, you essentially killed the supply and you've killed the banking. So once the banking is there and the supply is there, it's going to take off.
Which is exactly what you said early on about the airline industry, too. In Canada, how we have all our things shut down.
So some of those are going to be depressed. And I think biotech right now is bloated. I think tech is bloated. I can't really say about a lot of other industries, but yeah, metals are down. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to tell because right now, interest rates are so low that you're kind of forcing all the quantitative easing capital right into the stock market and into commodities markets.
Oh, actually, help me out with something here. Something I was trying to figure out. I can't remember the name of the damn thing, so I've been trying to find it. It was about quantitative easing. The idea, everybody says if you just give everybody checks, inflation's going to kill the prices and whatever. But the concept was, yes, in the long term, giving people money will cause inflation, but whoever gets it first will be able to take advantage of the increased spending power before inflation kicks in, which is why giving Wall Street $600 billion ends up they get like $600 billion, but then everybody else gets minus the amount of inflation it causes. And I just cannot remember the name of that stupid concept. It was like somebody's law or something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know, but I don't remember the name of the law.
Damn it. Maybe somebody in chat. Anybody here like a huge Aaron Clary fan? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It's the idea that the $2,000
No,
stimulus checks will increase the economy, but those guys get $2,000 of spending power at the current rate. And then afterwards, once
yeah,
everybody else gets it, they're going to get the inflation.
It's Keynesian economics, basically. It's Keynesian economics. It's the idea that when the market goes down, then government steps in to push.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the market speeds up again, government steps back. So essentially, you keep the economy rolling by using, since when does Clary have fans? Anyway, so what it comes back to is that if you give someone who's already have their basic things covered, they're just going to invest it in something that's inflation proof. Stocks are generally inflation proof. Properties are inflation proofs. And so people tend to flock to them. Like I don't have any money in the bank anymore, and I just run credit cards month to month because you lose money by having it in the bank.
And back to the topic now. So here's the point: to get those guys that did that, they put into Bitcoin at 16,000. Now is it at 40,000 or is it at 10? I don't even know anymore.
36 or 37, I think.
Those guys are acting like Mr. Moneybags, just landed on free parking, and it was something somebody told me very early on. I think it was my brother actually about the stock market. Until you realize the gains, they're not gains yet. And I thought that was a very important lesson because a lot of those guys will think, I'm a millionaire. It's like, not until you cash out, because that could easily just go down and up day after day.
Yeah, there's also the liquidity issue.
True. How hard is it? And that's the thing. How fast, like Bitcoin, you have to have your transaction confirmed within the blockchain before it goes through, right?
Yeah. So if everyone decides that we're going to sell now, you could potentially be left holding the bag for a while. It's the same thing I've seen. I had it happen to me once with a market stoppage.
Right.
Because I was going to sell something because I had a gut it was going down. And it started to go down, and they did a market stoppage, and when they opened it back up, it had already dropped beneath my stop loss limit. And then I had to redo that, and I lost another like 20-30% on it.
That's frustrating as hell, man.
But it's a good learning thing because you don't get arrogant and you don't end up sabotaging yourself when you've been kicked in the balls enough times. When you've been kicked in the balls enough times, your main motivation, I don't want to be kicked in the balls again, rather than I'm going to present my balls ripe for the kicking.
Yeah, I'm going to present my balls because what are you going to do about it? What do you pause? Oh, I did not picture a kick was coming.
Well, it's the same reason I think why GME was doing those volumes this week, because it became a great trading stock. Yeah. Because it got a lot of attention and people saw that it was extremely volatile, which draws in a lot of day traders who are in there to do quick trades. Because if a stock is moving, like it bouncing from let's say 0 to 40%, back to 10, up to 30, back to 0, up to 40, then you're going to be able to take advantage of that by shorting at the top and buying at the bottom and just churning.
Yeah. Seems obvious. To be honest, I was doing a bit of that this year and it was working out fairly well, but I'll never forget that it's very easy for yesterday's floor to become tomorrow's ceiling. But then again, same as you, 2008. My real estate or my investor advisor, whatever the hell, he's like, yeah, you know what you want? You want gold and bank stocks, or you want bank stocks because gold is too risky, but banks, they're always going to be there. They're stable. And then 2008 hit. He's like, yeah. I'm like, thanks, man. Then he's like, yeah, well, we can move into this stuff now. Not telling me, hey, just fucking sit and wait. This stuff will bounce back because the government will bail them out. Like literally every piece of advice this professional gave me was the worst thing you could do at any given time. I'm still peeved about that.
Well, used to have a broker who used to say that if the market's going down, you need to buy like crazy. If it's going up, you need to sell like crazy because they make money off the commission for each transaction. So the more transactions you keep going, the better. And no broker is ever going to say, yeah, you should sit in cash now.
Yeah. That's the problem. I was naive, man. I didn't know about the incentives of their side of things. I just assumed that they were like a doctor. I'm here to make you better. Here's what you need to do. Although even doctors don't do that now. You got pharmacy representatives coming in, pitching a certain drug and kind of showing some studies. And the doc's like, yeah, sure, Zoloft, gotcha. They're almost just shilling for pharmacy now. And that's why everybody's on SSRIs, because those have really good margins.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the problem we've kind of built ourselves into, because everyone's on something. Everything has to be a sale.
Yeah.
You always have to be buying or selling something.
Except for expertise, apparently. It's always got to be a product, never expertise.
Well, it's kind of like the integrity thing, and you can say what you want about AOC, but I do like that she's been shitting on Ted Cruz.
I don't know. He's the one chance that Pornhub has of getting back into MasterCard's good graces, so I kind of want him to win this one. Because they're gonna screw up the Bitcoin market if everybody starts wanking to Bitcoin, literally.
Yeah, you could see that happening. Actually, the big payment providers cutting off the ability to buy Bitcoin using their cards.
Oh, that would make sense.
Because you do know government is going to want to get in there with some regulation and some taxation, because I know that governments know if you bought Bitcoin, or some of them know, because they can see the transactions from, let's say, your account to Coinbase.
Yeah, they just got to know which companies. It's the same way as they broke Tor. They don't need to know what's inside the Tor network. They just need to know what's on the entry and exit nodes. Are you back to drinking Caesars in the morning?
No, I'm drinking Sprite. I'm still on the no drinking thing.
Oh, it's been... Oh, I guess... No, wait, how long do we got now? It's what, the 30th today? 30th. You got one more day of not drinking. I'm rooting for you, man.
Yeah, I'm going to have a beer at exactly 12:01 tomorrow.
Yeah, you have a drinking problem. I don't think it's a problem. I have a not drinking problem. That's the difference. Yeah, the whole thing. It's
I don't have a drinking problem. I have problems, so I drink.
Yeah. I don't know that. And that's the takeaway. Like, I know we're here for sexual strategy. I'm basically telling guys ways to have good relationships. And by good, I don't mean long. I just mean good. And this is my branding shill here. And it's kind of, there's only so much I can say about being attractive and kicking your wife to the curb if she's not doing things in healthy boundaries. I find media savviness is kind of almost an essential skill, because out of all the things that help you or hinder you, either in business or relationships or life, I find listening to people who don't have your best interests at heart are the easiest way people are getting hoodwinked. I think we can agree on that, right? Like, listening to Pat Stedman and his great energy thing is what are going to get people arrested. Listening to Gay Lou Boyle tell you about Evola and the aristocrat of the soul literally has gotten people arrested.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, is that people that follow him just kind of go off and feed off the emotions. They don't have any savviness towards like media manipulation or branding manipulation at all. And so it's very easy to fall for these tricks because, put a 7 at the end of your price. Oh, well, that's like a sale. $3.99 is actually $400, but you think of it as $300. You know what I mean? These very little easy manipulated tricks, and they all kind of add up.
Yeah, and I think that that's why I wrote that whole thing too about, making things measurable, because it feels good when you're riding off Pat Stedman's wine with Ice Cube's energy. But is it actually productive, or are you just getting like a good pick-me-up? Is it like watching a comedy on Netflix where you laugh a bit so you feel good in that moment, or shoving a brownie in your mouth so you get all that dopamine from the sugar, or doing a solid workout for that matter?
Yeah.
Or just going to work out but doing so ineffectively, but you still get that, oh yeah, I worked out, I feel good.
And they do that rabbit hole goes deeper too, because you get those same guys who are like that would totally agree with you, but then on the other side, they rant about rites of passage. Like, it's not my fault I don't know about which dopamine hits are good and which ones are bad. It's that because my dad never took me out to the woods to hunt a deer with a cape and a spear. It's always like, you notice that? It's like a very narcissistic thing. Everything is about me except for blame. And even the guys who would pretend to be against the problem, all the guys talking about fighting feminism, basically just do feminism. They're just mad that it's not their boot on the necks of men. They want it to be my boot, not theirs. So status quo always seems to win. It's almost like we're doomed to be assholes.
No, it's the same thing as the guys who are all about talking about accountability, and then they have a disclaimer on their site like none of this is financial advice.
Oh yeah, and don't forget the magic word authenticity, or I don't even know the word authentication, not authentication, authenticity.
Authenticity.
Thank you. I'm very authentic. I'm super authentic. This is the most authentic staged photo you've ever seen on Instagram. I'm telling you, it's authentic. I love my wife. I love my kids. Because see, right there, they're chopping wood out in the field. And the wife's wearing a dress and she's making cookies. How many wives of yours make cookies? I'm like, dude, it's cookies. You know, my
She made them from scratch, Ryan. Did she
Yeah.
make them from scratch, or did they come out of like a can or whatever?
Well, she didn't mill the wheat. So I guess technically, yeah, she made them out of raw ingredients that are already prepared. So at that point, it's like, fuck, I might as well just eat it out of a can.
Come on, Ryan. Real trad wives mill the wheat.
Yeah, real trad wives grow the wheat, mill the wheat, all without wearing shoes.
And real trad husbands, they process their own sugar cane to make table sugar.
Yeah, to make table sugar, make their own whiskey from scratch in a barrel that the government can't see because, you know, fuck the government. Meanwhile, I'm collecting Social Security because that's not the same thing.
Well, it's the same thing as the guy who's against socialism, but keep your hands off my Medicare.
And that was always a fun meme, too. I remember that. It was like 2008, 2009 when that was like a big talking point, wasn't it? Okay, Conk's making me laugh right now. Subpar Alex Jones. You know, I'm a little retarded. All right. Yeah, and the trad thing too.
With Alex Jones, though, I think he knows he's more of an entertainer. I think that's how he sees himself. I don't think he sees himself as being real. I think he sees himself as an entertainer.
Oh, dude, guaranteed. If you asked him what would be the pinnacle of your career, he wouldn't say like Walter Cronkite. He would say Hulk Hogan. I guarantee you. Guarantee you. Which, to be fair, that's a pretty good goal to have in life.
But the big problem is when people can't tell when someone's entertaining them and when something's real.
I still can't.
And we've been blurring that line because, like, you know, the memosphere bot.
I know of it. I don't follow it.
Yeah, it's like a bot that tweets based on like a handful of like the money Twitter / Manosphere accounts.
Oh dear Lord!
And occasionally I catch myself not being able to tell that this is the bot because it reads like an actual tweet. I think the one today was like something like, "Young samurai, you know how to make your day count. You need to attack your day like a sledgehammer."
Oh, dude, that's pretty good.
Like that sounds like something money Twitter would fucking say.
Yeah. Samurai and sledgehammer. Convoluted metaphors, vague goals. It's damn perfect.
But the biggest problem is like when the guys who do that actually start getting success because Alex Jones is kind of built brick on brick.
Yeah.
So he's kind of been able to keep in touch with, you know, this is all me bullshitting.
Yeah.
But then
after 10 years, I'd hope so at this point. Yeah.
The problem is when he was like, I wonder when he realized that, holy shit, people are taking me seriously.
I wonder, that would probably be a pretty like cynical moment too, when you realize like you're entertaining people. It's like, remember that chick that played Walter White's wife in Breaking Bad? I can't remember her name.
Yes. Yeah. Skylar or whatever.
And then she used to get like hate mail from people and they'd like threaten her because she was such a bitch wife to Walter. And she was like, what in the fuck are you talking about? Like she was actually a little concerned. Or people who do the Don Draper shit. God, he's so sexy. It's like, what? This is just a tall dude from the Midwest who was a theater nerd. Why are you guys talking to him like he basically stopped slavery in the 60s?
Well, you know, that's kind of one of the things I kind of learn when I take Twitter breaks on occasionally and step away from the manosphere. Is that can kind of become its own microcosm, and there's enough fiction in there that you kind of lose touch with reality.
Yeah. Which is worrisome because we're so atomized lately.
What do you mean in atomized?
Well, COVID's perfect example. basically you're almost like barred from seeing people. Like the amount of people that the girl and I see week to week has dropped like 90%. Not because we're become antisocial or any fault on our part. It's just logistically people aren't around to discuss things or talk with. There's nobody honking their horn outside our house. There's nobody coming back from a baseball game that we stop at the red light on the corner and say, "Hi, how you doing? Who won?" Then you realize they're fat and they're probably suburb people and they're all freaked out because somebody's starting a conversation with them. Like all of that's just gone. And so like the example I use is I have a really good buddy. We talk to each other every now and then on the phone. And he always reminds me that he has no idea what the fuck any of this shit is. And it doesn't really, he doesn't care. It's no clout. It's no, oh, wow, you do, like, he's like, oh, a book. All right, whatever. And that's it. And I don't think enough people have that kind of real life anchor to kind of remind them that this ain't shit. Like being an F-list internet celebrity is about as useful as, I can't even think of an example, but you know what I mean, right?
Well, I do think that's a great tool to have, though, to avoid sabotaging yourself after you become marginally successful in your profession.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had people tell me, like when I tell them, they can kind of see my life changing and so on, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing this and this and this, and they're like, I don't understand what the fuck you do, but
yeah,
like, hold this for me, please, while I screw it in. Like, fair enough.
I like that though. I remember that when I first went to go do that Central Florida convention, the League of Distinguished Gentlemen thing, which I don't like talking about. My buddy had come in from British Columbia and he was staying, like our building has like guest rooms that you can rent out to your guys as long as you book them in advance. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to stay. I'm here for like 3 or 4 days, but the fourth day I got to go down to Florida. I'm giving a speech. He goes, oh, is that stupid books about like picking up chicks you used to do? And he starts laughing at me. I was like, fuck. I'm telling guys like, here, just so you don't commit suicide. Here's how you can survive on a struggling dead bedroom. And my buddy's just like, you're an idiot. I like having that. And I would hate to lose that. And I think the big part of having guys like you or Chesty, for example, is this isn't your income. You don't earn shit from this. This is literally a hobby for you. And so you have zero interest in placating people's lives. You're like, if I think you're an idiot, I'm just going to tell you you're an idiot. What are you going to do? Remove me from the channel and I lose this income stream? I'll live.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Kick me off the show and I get my Saturdays back?
Yeah. Oh, no. I guess I'll go back to drinking. That's what I was going to do anyway. It's what I've been doing on the show. But you know what I mean? And I don't think enough people have that kind of gut check friend. And maybe that's because, men don't make tribe. What's the other thing? Tribes. That's the problem. If you had a tribe of guys, they'd hold you to account. I'm like, nah, dude. It's collective delusion when you get your tribe.
Because I was going to get on that exactly because whenever I've been involved with something like that, everyone gets into this collective delusion is groupthink. I think is a phenomenon they talk about in organizational psychology. Right. Everyone starts thinking the same. And there's this great, I think it's an Eisenhower quote that if everyone's thinking the same, then no one's thinking. But it kind of explains why when, the market crashed on Wall Street, every guy was like, how could this market crash? It was looking great based on all the indicators. And no economist foresaw the crash on Wall Street, except 3 guys have been screaming like everything's going to crash for 15 years.
3 guys with autism. Who'd have thunk?
Yeah. But it kind of goes autism is kind of our psychopaths are our security mechanism if shit hits the fan. Autists are a security mechanism when we're about to fuck something up royally.
Hey, I wonder if that's the answer for why autism is not bred out of us. Because you need those people that kind of don't have enough social savviness to be hoodwinked into these kind of mass movement things. Do you figure there's a bunch of cavemen who thought that clubbing animals was wrong and then the one autist was just ignored it and he's the one that survived? So there's always that bit of autism gene everywhere.
Well, I just think it comes down to if something's going really fucking well, the psychopaths aren't going to warn you because they're busy exploiting the system.
Right.
But if something's going too well to be true, the autist is going to be the guy from his Reddit man cave on his account, the entire civilization is about to crash. It's falling down around us. And that's why I was kind of concerned because there are not enough autists in the trad movement. So when they scream about the fall of Western civilization, I'm most like, oh no, what you're screaming at is okay, we're getting rid of religion. People are becoming more and more atheists. And that even goes for like immigrants from Muslim countries. Okay, fair enough. Generation one are kind of conservative and hardcore with the religion. Generation two, the chicks are doing anal in school bathrooms, and the guys are fucking white chicks and getting high.
Mm-hmm.
And think about launching their rap career.
Yeah. Makes you wonder too, like how wonderful must the trad life have been when the first chance that somebody gets who's in the trad life, they get the fuck out. Something to think about.
Yeah, and then you have a few guys who are like, I want to go back to the trad life, but for some reason they never go join the Amish, do they?
No, I remember that. There was this one guy, I can't remember his account, but he was talking about trad this, trad that, and I thought, like, and he was looking for like a church to join, and I'm like, look, if you really want to be trad, you might as well join the Mormons, because so far they're like the best chance you're gonna have of a social system that actually enforces like gender roles or marriage. He goes, oh, I'll think about that, and he stuck with Catholic because whatever. I want my team to win. I don't want to be on the winning team. Horrible attitude to have, by the way.
The funniest thing with Catholics, though, is like birth control is technically against their scripture, and like 30 to 40% of Catholics use birth control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny how that works. Rules for the rules are great as long as I don't have to follow them. Everybody else should. It's kind of like human nature.
Well, that's why I kind of joke that Christianity is like the Baskin Robbins of religions. You just pick the flavors you like.
Mm-hmm.
And
maybe you like maybe it's true. You just like fish on Fridays. Who knows?
And to be fair, like at least like the Muslims have that halal haram shit, and they kind of placate it on the surface, and then they go fuck around on the down low like Christians used to do.
Yeah. Hey, what can I say? We're all hypocrites, and that's why I'm very annoyed at the anti-movements for all this stuff, like anti-feminism, the atheism, Reddit tier crap. It's because their only strategy is to point out hypocrisy. You notice that? Politics too. The whataboutism. Well, Trump did this bad thing. He's horrible. It's like, yeah, but Obama did that too. Yeah, but it's totally different now. It's like, yeah, it's different because it's the guy you don't like. It's basically all it is. It's a giant worldwide popularity contest among like 500 different activities we're all doing. Are you a George Bruno fan? Hey, what's up, George? Are you a George Bruno fan, an Anthony Johnson fan? I don't know why you would be. A Pat Stedman fan or a Ryan and Carl fan? Well, it all depends who you found more likable at first. Doesn't matter whether the one guy's going to jail because you'll just justify that as some nonsense. And these guys are making fun of him. At least he had the balls to go to jail. I'm like, dude, you could say that about suicide as well. At least he had the balls to pull the trigger. I'm like, how's that working out for you? I think you had a tweet on that too, didn't you? Where you're like, here's some other things that take balls. And then you put a bunch of like, hold my beer level stupidity.
Yeah, and it's kind of where the manosphere swings at times because it kind of goes through these phases and they're kind of predictable because you always have like a trad phase and that's usually when a generation of PUAs they've gotten laid for years, they've done their coke, they've made their money shilling courses in Eastern Europe. I'm still wondering when we're going to have like the pickup companies are going to move to doing like pickup in the Congo because that's like the last place where anyone hasn't heard of pickup.
Yeah. Oh, dude, guys were mentioning that too when we asked about where are you going to find a traditional wife, and I think it was Ghana, somewhere in Africa. Guys were saying that place because it's like a hardcore Christian African country, and the girls walk and still cook and clean and all that stuff. And I think it's probably going to be a thing. The last trad women.
Could be.
The Guyanese or Ghana. I know there's two different countries that sound super close, and I always get them mixed up.
Yeah, there's Guyana and there's Ghana.
That's the one. And Ghana's the African one, and then Guyana was the South American one. Or God, I'm sounding ignorant now. Hold on a sec.
Guyana is where Jim Jones did his Kool-Aid thing, so that would be a good place for the cults to move, actually.
Oh yeah, good for them. Yeah, we got a lot of history out here. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, the takeaway for me is that everybody's emotional, everybody's a meatbag, everybody goes off of feelings, and everybody just wants another dad. Some nice, personable person to follow that makes us feel good, who can offload all of our problems onto like a scapegoat, and then cheer on if they do anything successful, because that can be our victory. It's Dad 2.0 meets the literal scapegoat, which The part that makes me laugh is that the whole point of Jesus is he did the whole sacrifice for your sins thing, so guys would stop sacrificing goats and putting all their sins onto them. Do you guys remember that old religion, old Christianity stuff prior? It's what they'd always do. It's just sacrifice. Just not human sacrifice because there wasn't a lot of humans in the desert, so they had to sacrifice goats. And we just got a new generation of goats now. Mike Cernovich is the new goat. Sacrifice him every 4 years when he does his political pivot again. And then 4 years later when he's like, hey, I never did like Trump. I'm a huge Bernie fan. You're like, whatever. Did the Coke tell you that? I don't know why I have like an aversion to Cernovich so much. I think it's that stupid workout video he had with the pirate shirt on that got me.
Yeah, to be honest, like he gave me some of the best advice I ever got in the manosphere, so fair enough.
Which one?
Because
which advice?
When I was starting out the blog, I asked him like, well, how do I drive traffic?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think my first month I had like 10 readers. And he's like, don't worry about the traffic, just focus on writing content. So I wrote like 300 essays the next 2 years.
Yeah, it's funny. That was the advice you gave me at the start of this thing too. I remember that clearly. Yeah. I remember that? I think it was right at the end of Redman Group when Anthony pulled that weird nonsense, and then we kind of sat down. I was like, what do we do? It's like, well, let's just start something else. We built it once, we can build it twice. And then you were like, yeah, they want to argue about who's an idiot and who's not an idiot. Just drown them in content. If they want to keep up, they're more than welcome to. If they do better, power to them. It worked.
Yeah, it's like the best two pieces of advice. One that was the one from Cernovich, and the one I got from Illimitable Man, which is don't pander to your audience. Do what you want, and let the people who want what you offer them come to you, because the other ones are fickle and they're just going to ditch you whenever something new and shiny comes along.
Also, fairly good point. And hell, that actually was like a survival strategy for him, because when Tate pulled in that whole, I know we're talking about sphere drama now, that e-girl that he was dating and then started talking shit about him, and then Tate threw up all those things there. Guy's still stuck by Illimitable side, so you got to give him credit. Like the guys he got were loyal enough; they were willing to look past all kinds of simpery.
Well, it's the same as Ed, he'll do like a week's worth of good motivational advice, his Tony Robbins thing, and then he'll drop like a weekend full of crack jokes just to kind of pare down the herd to people who he wants to follow. Yeah.
Oh, dude, and I like too. Like he does those back and forth, but you'll notice like once somewhere in the middle there, he'll just hide it in there. Something that's like gets me thinking like, Ed? You know what I mean? Like one critique of the system that's very on point, but she kind of comes out of left field, but then it's just one and gone. Then he's back to coffee and crack jokes. I think it's very clever how he's like very subversive that way with these ones. Like I think he did, like his last one was the one talking about how the GME stocks, like they're just going to change the rules and screw over the people that screwed over Wall Street on this one. Watch.
Yeah, of course they are. Because I mean, they kind of tweeted a lot about that over the last 2 days. Like, you're going to have to work 10 times as hard for half the return, because if you let's say one of the big hedge funds, you're going to get priority access to any new IPO, which means that, okay, let's say Facebook is opening at 18, you're going to get shares at 14. So you already have a bit of a return to start with, and then it's going to spike on day one, and then you sell off your shit to idiots that are left holding the bag. And then at the end of the line of that, you have like the guys who were in on like the first IPO, where the guy who painted Facebook's offices and got 100 million in shares to do it.
Right.
So you're always going to have to work harder to get the same return. It's the same, like I think I told a story once where like there were 2 people I knew. One girl negotiated her first $1 billion deal when she was 21.
Is that the Kardashian chick, or are you talking about somebody else?
No, someone else.
Okay.
But it was just because her dad was running a multi-billion-dollar company.
Oh, wait. You're talking about that Australian mining magnate.
Yeah.
So, actually, maybe there's a few of these ones. But yeah, I do remember that one.
It's just like, you're always going to, like, we're all in the same race, but some people get head starts, some people get better shoes, some people have access to better trainers. And it's been like that forever. Like the aristocracy used to train all their sons in martial arts. If you were going to make your way up as a commoner, you'd have to join the military and work your balls off and just be better than everyone.
Yeah. And I don't know why that's so hard, because there's the entire like MGTOW, Black Pill, all those guys are basically pissed off because natural alphas get all the chicks and they don't get none. And it's abundantly clear. You're right. When it comes to markets, when it comes to money, you're going to have to work 10 times as hard to get half as far ahead. Same with the sexual marketplace. If you're not naturally gifted, have been fucking since you were 12, you're going to have to work twice as hard to get half as much. And that's just the nature of the game. You're going to work with the hand you're given. You know, what's that? That's the pablum, right? Work with the hand you're given. But what else are you going to do? Just sit there, jerk off in your living room and wait to die?
But like the reason why I don't shit on black pillars and MGTOWs, other than occasionally throwing like a joke and good fun at the MGTOWs,
Yeah.
is because I kind of get where they're coming from. Because I mean, you have two options in this whole thing, and Rolo can argue that, well, even if you don't care about the sexual marketplace cares about you. Okay, fine, fuck it. Like, even if you don't care about the stock market cares about you because you're buying shit at Target. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But I can kind of see that you can get to a point where you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to have to stop doing these things that I like doing. I'm going to have to start getting into shape and working out, which I hate. I'm going to have to leave my house, which I hate. I'm going to have to start eating healthy. I'm going to have to stop smoking weed all day, every day. You know what? I'm kind of comfortable here jerking it to porn. Maybe if I save my money for the next 10 years, I can buy a sex doll. Fuck it.
Well, see, if that was the it, I would love that. That's... Wait, what was that?
I can kind of see landing on that side that, you know what? I enjoy doing these things. They're not conducive to making money or being successful in the sexual marketplace in our current society. But you know what? Fuck it. This is more enjoyable to me as an overall package.
See, now that's where, like, I agree, but that's not where my problem is, because that's frame. What I want, solipsism, I'm the center of my life. I make my decisions. If I want to be self-sabotaging, that's my decision to make, my consequences, whatever. I don't mind that. That's why, like, remember when Donnie was still with us and we were chatting with Turd Flinging, or they were chatting with Turd Flinging Monkey, and they were talking, everybody was just focused on his sex doll thing and, like, calling him a creep. Personally, I thought that actually went well, and I'll hold water for the guy. Not because I think, you know, he's a bit delusional or the sex doll and the Instagram account with this sex doll is kind of weird, but he's owning it. He's like, whatever, this is my life. Yeah, you're not going to like it, and that's okay. Sign up to my sex doll's Instagram account, Celestina or whatever her name is. I would love it if that was the MGTOW guys, like true herbivore men, but that's not what it is. For some guys, yes, but for most guys, what it is they're just like, hey, I'm quitting. Just so you know, I'm out of here. And then they constantly complain about why they're quitting. It's like, commit. If you're going to go your own way, go. If MGTOW was only about what's the best boat to buy for, you know, sailing around the world for funsies, or why hiking in the Appalachian Trail is better than trying to climb Everest, or you know what I mean? Like shit that they enjoy doing, or what's the best brand of lube to jerk off in your living room to while smoking weed. I would love it. That's guys literally deciding to live their own way and enjoying life, but it's never that. It's always this sour grapes thing. It's like, where have all the good men gone? Like chicks complaining how they can't find a man, but the girl is like legitimately objective trash, complaining that guys don't coddle their failures. That's the part I don't like.
When I stopped going off Twitter and had that like year-long break, it was like, I don't think I told anyone. I just stopped logging on. It was like, yeah, I could log on Twitter, but fuck Twitter.
Yeah. Same as me. I just saw some Mr. Beast tweets. Like, I bet you guys couldn't even take a month off. I'm like, oh, I'll try that out. That'd be fun. I didn't say anything either. I think I just put one tweet on so I could show like 30 days there, and it wasn't hard. People figure it out. Or worst case scenario, and I think this is why a lot of guys have to announce they're leaving Twitter, is because they're seriously worried that nobody will notice. And if like nobody's talking about them, they don't exist. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, but that's kind of, it reminds me of the, there's a concept in borderline personality disorder. I think it's called object constancy. Where
object constancy or object permanence?
One of the two.
Okay.
But anyway, when it comes down to, like, when a baby leaves the room, you are literally dead and gone to that baby.
Oh yeah, object permanence.
We have the same thing. When you leave the room, you don't exist to them. And I think that's kind of the same thing we've kind of bred into people, because I keep seeing this culture as the cultural zeitgeist is borderline personality disorder for the women, and a mixture of schizoid personality disorder and antisocial. Well, no, let's not do schizoid. Let's do autism or psychopathy for the men.
Yeah, well, I was almost thinking histrionic personality disorder, but I mean, we're all in the same cluster of disorders here. We're just quibbling over which edge case we're talking about.
It's all cluster B. So it's because I kind of get the whole thing with guys who enjoy doing. I had to talk with someone not too long ago about why do men love playing video games so much, and it's because it's made to trigger all like the guys' reward mechanisms. You're being successful. You are the center of that world. You control that world to a certain extent, and you're getting the constant success rewards. If you add a little bit of weed on top of that, so you can actually sit there with a small batch of euphoria and some good food and some heat, so you're not freezing or hungry, that's a better life situation than most men would have had for most of our history. If you even get your dick sucked while doing that, you're literally apex in history.
Yeah, the alpha male. Well, that's more than that too, because video games never used to be that. They used to have like the arcade niche to it, where the idea was kill the guy as fast as possible so he spends more money. It was literally like one-arm bandits or slot machines. But then once it switched over to like home consoles and that's when they realized just killing the guy constantly is more of a frustrating experience than anything. So they dumb down the game, but try to give you the perception of it having difficulty. And that's where you get that meme where like, to play Red Dead Redemption, you just hold down the A button for 45 minutes and watch an interactive movie where it feels like you're shooting things. Or press Y to grieve. Press this button to finish the game. You're like, oh, cool. So it's not even like it used to be. Super Mario Brothers, you had to be good at it. Otherwise, you would just die constantly. So there really is a manufactured success out of there. You know what I mean? But now it's just, well, you can watch the Avengers and pretend you're Captain America and hold this button down while you do it. So it's even worse than you're describing, I find.
Yeah, that's what I kind of liked about Cyberpunk, because it did have those cutscenes and those cinematic things. Mm-hmm. But I can kind of accept those if they're there to kind of create the ambiance of the game.
Yeah.
But I just hate those hit A, hit B, hit Y, because you're not actually playing a game. You're watching an interactive movie.
Yeah. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure novel, except for there's only one choice in each section. There's an 80s, 90s reference if you guys ever... Do they still have choose-your-own-adventure books, or did they stop making those? Or do you even know what I'm talking about?
You have them, but I've seen them digitally.
Oh, yeah. As a kid, I was hooked on those and Hardy Boys, man.
Oh, yeah. I think I've read every Hardy Boys book there is.
Yeah, right. You were a Nancy Drew fan. Don't even fuck with me.
I read half of those, too, actually.
Yeah. I still love those. If you guys remember those, did your school library have those in elementary school? The blue books for the Hardy Boys and the yellow Nancy Drew series? Ooh, look at that. More Cyberpunk fans. I might have to break my rule of no triple A games ever and try that one out. Like I said, I'm always terrified of that.
Play it on console. Play it on PC.
Well, that's the thing. I don't play it to play. Yeah, you're right. You have to, because they built it for for PC and then downgraded everything and it made it shit for console, right?
Yeah, but to get a little bit back on topic here, I think the biggest departure we've done as a group is that this whole thing started off as sharing notes.
Yep.
That means you're not asking permission, but if, let's say, my girl does something, I can ask you, this just happened this week. Has this happened to you? And then you can get a response like, yeah, this happened. It was something that happened like 10 years back. It's not a big deal or whatever. And then you can actually do something with the information. You decide what you do with the information yourself. What I'm seeing more and more is the brand of me, which is based on I'm selling you something so I can be successful, which I'm then going to use to leverage more customers because I'm successful.
Yeah. Well, the process... I
cracked the joke that...
Yeah?
Well, I kind of cracked the joke that I can't respect anyone whose first piece of success was in the manosphere. And the whole
I still laugh at that every time you say it.
And the whole reason behind that is, okay, so you had to come to like the most wretched hive of scum and villainy on the internet to actually be like, oh my god, I'm top 1%.
Yeah, well, that's always been my joke, because everybody's talking about the manosphere is full of toxic guys, the absolute worst things ever. It's like, no, 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 no. They're not created here. This is literally like the last place for them to go before they start renting a van and putting out a YouTube manifesto. Like, I don't think you guys understand. And that's why I don't ever want to see the manosphere go mainstream. Like, you don't want that. The level of desperation when dudes telling you how to get laid have become the biggest thing ever for an entertainment venue. Like, I can't think of a more dystopic thing to happen than that. You know?
Well, the level of autism would have to be dialed to 37 for that to become, for the manosphere to go live.
Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know why people seem to want it. I think I know why they want it. They want it because all they're thinking of is, dude, I'll be so popular and with millions of followers. It's like, yeah, sure. If you want to arrange deck chairs in the Titanic, go for it. I don't want that. I want to enjoy the decline. I don't want the decline to eat me alive.
Well, if you won't be able to enjoy the decline if the manosphere goes mainstream, because that's like the last stop before I Am Legend territory.
Oh, 100%. Actual armed insurrections in the streets, autism, running some kind of like fancy pants drones with pistols attached to them. Or I think people are trying that now, aren't they? Trying to put like 3D printed guns onto commercial drones and seeing what they can do with that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's not out there already.
No, like the funniest thing I read all week was that the FBI is having problems hiring hackers to do white hatting because they require them to have been off weed for 3 years.
Yeah, the military's going to have to give that one up. But, oh no, that's what they did. That Pentagon article about Too Fat to Fight. There's so... Americans, and the way they described it was 23-year-old Americans have the hand-eye reflexes of fighter pilots and the physical conditioning of 50-year-old smokers. And so they're like, all right, we need drones because the people are too fat here. The other alternative was like, all these immigrants, we'll get them fighting in the army, but clearly that doesn't work out. That's just a French Foreign Legion minus the badassery.
It's like, how come you created Skynet? Well, the generation was just too fat to fight and we needed to fight the Martians.
I'm just picturing T-800s walking around with like creatine, diet supplements, guys fighting them off with lasers. My stupid imagination. Yeah, I don't want any of this stuff. I don't think anybody wants any of this stuff. I actually want us to kind of pivot out of the sphere, even as a brand. Like, you know how you say people, like, get in, get what you need, get the fuck out? I almost kind of want brands to do that too, but not to politics, because we're fucking cancer when they put us in politics.
Well, dude, just wait until Stephen Harper runs in the next Canadian election. You'll be sitting there with like a Make Canada Great Again hat, full Captain Canada's outfit.
Dude, have you seen our new conservative party leader now?
No.
He's like the uncle that like shovels his driveway on the weekends. I want to say there's that Jim Gaffigan. You know him?
Yeah.
He's basically Jim Gaffigan. So I don't know how we're going to possibly play him out as a MAGA Trump thing. Although I guess maybe Mad Max. Some Quebec guy, some Quebec Harper guy became the biggest thing. I don't know. I have a hard time taking it seriously. Like the amount of gaffes that our government does and has done for like as long as I can remember, and yet people still seem to stand for it. Either we got a system that's so robust that we can screw up every step of the way and still somehow plod along to success, which means they don't need my input on it, or it's not that good and it's going to basically implode. There's nothing I can do to stop it. So it's really not a case I can see being made other than just to point at it and get angry every now and again because I just want to leave my house and go work at Starbucks for the day instead of being stuck in my living room, you know? God, that was a rant.
Oh, yeah. But, well, you know, it goes back to the same thing. You know, you want to get out of here before this place eats you alive, which is an understandable way of doing it. Because if you keep doing this, sooner or later, your ego's going to blow up and you'll be like, oh my God, I have 198 watchers and only 68 likes. And you're going to rant at people and yell at them to hit the like button. And then suddenly you're going to start to get more divisive and create more drama because all attention is good attention. And next thing you know, you'll be sitting there with a fucking NWO shirt and have a Hogan-style dye in your beard.
You know what would have been funny if we had set that joke up beforehand and I actually had an NWO shirt. And it was basically just describing the show's progress over the last 2 hours. And then to watch me slowly get sadder and sink into my chest. That would have been a great sketch.
Yeah, it's kind of like everyone, because you can have to give Cernovich one thing.
Mm-hmm.
That guy understands how to use controversy in a productive means to get his message out there.
Oh, dude. Yeah. The survivability.
Everyone kind of adopted that controversy model. And you've seen me drawn to the furthest extent with the guys who were like, I'm going to delete my Twitter account because they're going to ban me because I'm too controversial for Twitter.
I fucking love those guys. They were trying to get on that hype train of the conservatives are getting banned and I'm being silenced, but they weren't important enough for Twitter to even want to get rid of them. So they had to delete their accounts instead to pretend. It's like... It's like when you see those movies where there's like the whole bar or school gets into a fight. And then once the fight's all over, some like weak nerd walks in. It's like, that'll teach you. Red Pill School, he did that, by the way. Once all this censorship thing went in, he just deleted his account.
Well, he's been paranoid about getting canceled for years, and he's still not canceled.
Yeah. Oh, dude, Wine More Please. He and him, they hate each other. Well, Wine More Please hated him first. But yeah, that was the one thing. He's like, you've been bitching about censorship for 7 years, yet you're still here. Every now and then it's kind of funny. I forget how... What's that?
Well, Red Pill School is a Dr. Doom with a manosphere. Dr. Doom is this economist who's been predicting a massive market crash for like 20 years. He's been right twice. And every time the market crashes, they trump him out there like, here's the man who foresaw the crash of the market. Yeah, because he's saying a broken clock principle.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing, I don't get it. And that's the thing for him. It's not a brand thing. So he's not making money off of that. He's anonymous just like you. So it's not like notoriety. I'm almost kind of thinking it's guys that buy into their own hype and their own narratives. Like it's something more visceral as opposed to just like some cynical branding experience. I think it's just the way people think. They want to be proven right more than they want to be happy and be wrong.
Well, in fear of being a little bit blue with my material here, they have a hole that they need to be filled by something big.
Mm-hmm. I never understood that either.
Well, if you've ever been successful at anything, if you've always kind of had that hole in your heart for attention and adoration, and suddenly you actually you're able to obtain it,
mm-hmm.
and you start to feel imposter syndrome because... how could I have gotten this? I'm a piece of shit. And then in order to get over the imposter syndrome, you fake it until you make it even more. And that leads to creating this whole false narrative. It's like, ever met someone who wasn't really successful, but if you talk to them, you'd think they were a billionaire?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Because they kind of build this whole story around them as these, the successful business tycoon. It's kind of what they did with The Apprentice and Trump.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of built him up to be this larger-than-life successful businessman. And then when that reality contradicts that narrative, you have two things you can do. You can either be like, oh, yeah, it's right, I'm failing and whatever, and be accepting of what the reality is, or you can blow that up even more, because that's usually what psychopaths do. They lie bigger.
Yeah. Well, they got nothing to lose, and they don't have any consequence, no guilt about the lie. Oh, yeah, that's right, because wasn't he basically on the verge of bankruptcy when The Apprentice started? And that was how he built up his billion empire again, was from that?
That's what I've heard. I've never looked into it too closely.
Yeah, same. I just remember that. New York real estate did really well, then did bad, then Apprentice, then good, then bad. Then did the politics thing. Now he's back at bad again. I don't know. Whatever. I'm going to be curious what he does now to earn the next, $1 billion thing. I guess everybody's assuming he's going to start his own political party. Become the new Ross Perot.
But he kind of shook hands with the Republican Party, Kevin McCarthy, earlier about being like helping them in the midterm elections.
Do you really think he's going to do that though right now?
He might, because he loves the attention.
Yeah. I think he'll ask for cash up front, to be honest with you.
Like, I don't want to go back to politics here, but Trump is great at energizing his base, but he's even better at energizing the Democratic base.
Yeah, fair point.
His fans like him. But his enemies fucking hate his guts. Like, Stacey Abrams went out and signed up like 10 million new black people to vote just to get rid of the fucker.
He's truly bringing unity. Yeah, I don't think the average person is able to handle that stuff. You're right, because like Cernovich is doing it and can keep a composure about him. I mean, as much as you can for being a cokehead. Trump can do that, but Milo didn't. Milo buckled under his own excellence. Anthony didn't even do it for much. He did it for like 1 good year of revenue, and then he just all of a sudden blew up his whole life for that. Who are some other good examples? Roosh couldn't handle it. Roosh buckled underneath his own excellence. He crashed and burned. Stedman did. Unlike Roosh, he didn't even wait for a big following first. He did it for the idea of getting a highly engaging tweet. Not even for money.
I want 50 retweets. I'm going to blow up my life for 50 retweets. That's fucking hilarious.
Isn't that just an admission there of how shitty your life is when, like, this is the cost of your self-respect, your dignity, and potentially your freedom? That 100,000 engagement line. I can make it, boys. Come on. Maybe you'll buy my masterclass then. I don't mean to dunk on him, but fuck it. He sucked so much shit for 3 years. He deserves every shit talking he's getting right now.
Well, it kind of reminds me of, like, there was a rap battle between two Canadians, like back in 2008 or something. It was kind of cast as a grudge match between Pat Stay and Holohan.
Okay.
And I think it was Holohan dropped the line, you sniff coke through the pen that you write with, so your bars are just a reflection of how pathetic your life is.
Ooh,
and
that's pretty good.
The thing you said there just made me think of that one.
I like that. That's a pretty fucking clever little piece of slam poetry he's got going on. Canadians doing this rap? I don't know, man.
Yeah. But it just kind of made me reflect on that. Like, at what level? Because it's like Kong said, you can't crash under excellence if you are never excellent. But if you are excellent, if you are a god in your own mind, and I think that's kind of our mistake as a collective group, because one of our core ideas have been, okay, you're a piece of shit now, but you need to fake it until you make it.
Yeah.
But the concept behind fake it until you make it, like, you always need to make other people believe in your bullshit. You never want to buy your own hype. And we've talked about that, like the kayfabe thing.
Yeah.
Like the guys who actually became a mark for themselves. And I think a lot of guys end up doing that because they end up faking it for so long that it becomes a part of their personality is just doing that.
Well, you're basically describing a narcissistic fantasy.
Yeah.
And that's the problem then, narcissistic fuel. That's why that outrage really matters. Like, I need to piss off the social justice warriors and the feminists, and Rollo hates me because I'm just too damn threatening to him. That's the fuel. That's the fuel that funds that narcissistic fantasy. But then the problem comes, and this is, I think, where the blowups happen. It's like another concept called narcissistic injury. It's where, and it's not just being mad at a guy for being a shitty brand, because that still buys into his narrative that I'm the most, controversial guy in the manosphere. They're mad at me, so therefore it's true. Rollo hates me, therefore it's this. But you know what I mean? At some point, they're buying into the narrative. But it's when somebody just disregards the narrative. That's when they have a breakdown. That's what they call a narcissistic injury. And then what you have is narcissistic rage. Because it's not anger, it's like actual rage. And that's where you get these spectacular blowups you're seeing. Like that Corey guy with his I got my receipts breakdown video he put out on Twitter or YouTube or something. I don't remember. Somebody showed it to me like a year ago.
No, yeah, I never watched it, but you were completely right. There is a narcissistic fantasy. And then at some point with fantasy, reality is always going to come back. It's like you said with the stock thing earlier. It's not gains until they're in your bank account.
Right.
And once you get to that point, that I have 10 million. I'm a millionaire in unrealized gains or in the valuation of my company in my own mind. Or in I'm the hottest dude out there because I have all these likes on Instagram. Still haven't gotten laid off it. Or I'm successful with women because I have a ton of pictures with me with hot women on my Facebook.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the problem is we've had a tradition since the personal brand thing came to the manosphere with buying into the narcissistic fantasy.
Because it's a power trip. Everybody thinks it's awesome.
And what happens then is when anything contradicts the narcissistic fantasy, you have to start exiling the people who are kind of getting between you and your true believers, because that becomes kind of cult mechanics. Because you either have to buy in to the fantasy or you're cast as, they have a term for it in Scientology, subversive person.
Oh, yeah.
You become a subversive person within their cult, so you have to be immediately exiled and no one can deal with you anymore, because then that might crack the fantasy. And if people start asking questions and going on Google, they start finding some non-positive shit, and we can't have that because they may start thinking for themselves.
I know. And the whole thing is not healthy, and it's like the worst meta example. It's like the example you're not supposed to follow. Yeah, everybody's advice about get money, get muscles, get laid, all that shit might be good. But if you're hearing that message from a messenger who's following the same narcissistic life path, or narcissistic script, sorry, you're getting a very incongruent message, which makes sense why there's so much hate and disdain for the sphere, because you're getting this mixed message. Hey, everybody, you need to be a better man. And then the guy's acting like a complete fucking degenerate retard who's completely caught in la la land. And I think that's why women hate it more, because women are better able to pick up these subtext clues because they have to be. Guys are completely oblivious to it, and they just focus on the surface level message. And that's how you can have a complete moron. Yeah.
But guys in the manosphere are, if you tried to select for a group of men who completely fucked up subliminal messaging, you couldn't do a better job than the manosphere, because most of the guys come here, like, let's be honest, like most of the guys who come here and are like, I can't get laid, they could get laid. Usually it's a mixture of they turn down pussy when it's often offered on a platter,
mm-hmm.
or they have this thing where what was I going to say here?
They can't see the consequences of their actions, like eating Cheetos and getting fat makes you unattractive.
Yeah, like a girl could come into their apartment naked with beer and be like, "Hey, can I suck your dick?" And they'd be like, "Is she really into me? Do you think she likes me?"
What should I do? How do I avoid getting a Me Too accusation?
And I think that's why those brands go over so well. And that's why I liked kind of the old filtering mechanism in the manosphere, which was content, basically. And if you could come up with a ton of content, and if people tried it and be like, hey, these long, convoluted routines you came up with, they don't fucking work, dude, then you'd lose credit as a content creator, and you would lose status in the community. And sooner or later, you either stop coming up with dumb shit, or you refine it until you can come up with good shit.
Yep.
What it's now is people, as long as you can produce a good enough superficial narcissistic fantasy on social media and have receipts on the surface, you have an entryway. And once you have that in, it takes a while to see that, that car was rented, those clothes were rented, those were 2 escorts, and that looks like a hotel that I visited back in Macau that costs $20 a day to rent, and I'm pretty sure that's Coke on the table.
Yeah. The whole thing. And yeah, most people don't know. That's why they fall for it, because they don't see this stuff. I would argue, though, I can see it as a positive, too. Like, if you really want to learn about subtext when you're being manipulated, because those are real skills a guy needs to know. How do you know if a chick just wants you because she's gold digging? Or how do you know if she actually wants to suck your dick or just has baby rabies? There's all kind of like subtextual manipulations happening there. And I think if you can come out of the sphere where everybody's just throwing that shit in your face 24/7 with 12 out of 10 level of examples of manipulation, and you can come out of that with some understanding how this shit works, I'd almost argue you're better prepared for when Susie tries it with her amateur level bullshit. Like, no, 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 he's just a friend. You know what I mean? Of course, then that just means a lot of guys are going to get buried by it too, right? Thunderdome.
The big thing is once you've created a buy-in with the guys, once they bought your brand, and maybe they've started doing some of that same shit themselves, then they can't admit that, yeah, this guy's conning me. The guy who sold me the Eiffel Tower is actually a con man. No, I own the Eiffel Tower. I have this piece of paper. I'm going to take it to a lawyer. Oh, yeah, this document is not valid. You don't own the Eiffel Tower. You're a shitty lawyer. You're in on the conspiracy to drive me into bankruptcy. I'm going to get a better lawyer and a better lawyer and a better lawyer until finally everyone's like, you know what? You're insane. We're going to lock you up in an asylum, and hopefully the antipsychotics will kick in.
Yeah, and then you just start branding from prison. But this is why I'm really pissed about psychology. I think it's seriously failed, man, right now, and it's very female centric focused. Like, I'm sure you've seen Sean Smith or a couple other guys talking about how they're making stupid decisions because they essentially just want to have a girl talk about her problems, sympathize with it, be her friend at Starbucks that just listens to her bitch about her day. And then for guys, that doesn't work because guys, there's so many psychological concepts that could teach you about this and what to do about it, how to basically cut your losses, check your ego and say, okay, I got hoodwinked by the Eiffel Tower thing, but it doesn't make me into like some absolute degenerate. They could actually have this. Okay, yeah, so you're going through these psychological problems. And I kind of like, this is where Red Pill, at least the good parts of it, have kind of picked up the slack where modern psychology has left men to flounder. Yeah, the girl left you here. Here's the problems you have with like unhealthy types of narcissism. Here's what bipolar is all about. Here's why you get manipulated into this stuff. Here's why you refuse to see it and let yourself be manipulated. And there's all these things you could teach a guy and have a guy learn. And that would be an awesome thing for a therapy session. But unfortunately, that's just not what they get. They just give you a coping strategy. Oh, okay, well, that's just how you feel. Maybe that's vital. Maybe that's not. Do some breathing. Here's some Xanax. Go about your day. And it's just one more example of another institution that's failed men in its primary task. Not because they wanted to fail, but because they just don't care enough to worry about fixing things. And then even the solutions never work out. And that's where, who was that guy? I did a video on him. The one after I did the Somnez one about She's Not Yours, It's Just Your Turn, where he was talking about you want to find yourself a masculine psychologist, which drove me nuts, by the way. He was sitting there saying, yeah, you want psychology, but you need a masculine psychologist. Well, I'm like, what's the point of fucking psychology then? Like, if the system is good enough, I should be able to put anybody who's trained to a qualified level in front of me and get the same level of care. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of a profession. So either the profession isn't good enough and you need this arbitrary, masculine set of qualities in order for things to work, or the guy's lying and he's using that as a surrogate. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. Why people seem to still not understand. Like, being masculine isn't going to save your life. It's not going to. Neither is if a psychology degree isn't giving you an adequate level of care, then the whole profession, in my opinion, is useless.
Well, again, it comes back to what are you trying to give someone. I think psychology, for the most part, is about feelings and medication.
Yeah. Mostly medication.
Doing this because, well, if you think about it, just everyone in our society currently is drugged on something.
Yep.
Like, it's coffee, it's sleep aids, it's over-the-counter painkiller,
Ambien and alcohol, apparently.
Legal drugs, alcohol. Everyone's drugged on something. And there's a guy who came up with this concept that maybe we're born with a little bit too little alcohol in our blood. It's a new Mads Mikkelsen film that's coming out. And I think to some extent, everyone is trying to self-medicate their brain chemistry, but you came up with psychology as a way of trying to, okay, why are we doing these things to ourselves? And I think ultimately we're born to be a little bit miserable and at different misery tolerance. Because, the movie Life is Wonderful? It won an Oscar,
Yeah. I know the one.
It's all about this Italian guy who gets thrown into Auschwitz with his kid, and he plays this like convoluted game with his kid to keep him alive all the way through this death camp.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are going through life in that society is treating them like that kid. They're constantly trying to make them see that, oh, life isn't as bad as you think it is.
Go to your cave, find your spirit animal, slide.
So, yeah, everyone grows up feeling inadequate. And it used to be that you wouldn't, once you've hit your 40s and you had your job, your house, your wife, you wouldn't feel inadequate. You would live a life of quiet desperation, most likely, drink a bit too much, maybe eat a bit too much, but you didn't feel miserable or like you were a failure. But what social media has done is that it gives the 1% of people a window to show the other 99 how great their life is. So even if you have a pretty damn good life,
it's not as good as that other guy's, highlight reel.
Yeah, it's not as good as the guy who's fucking models on a plane. So people feel inadequate. And that's why I kind of think we need to look inside of ourselves more and reflect more on what makes me happy. Do you want to work 100 hours a week to become a CEO? Do you want to work maybe 20 hours a week? Do you want to buy a motorcycle and a string of bad-looking bowling shirts, stop cutting your hair and do ranty podcasts and sell guys advice for $100 while living a minimalist lifestyle? You can do that if you want to.
I was waiting to see you start calling the colors on my shirt.
Oh, that was a Clary reference.
But that's the thing. You know why that's not the conversation, though? Because you can't brand that. There's no market for telling a guy what he wants to value. You can try, and that's where the trad guys try, and the I don't want to call them, I think, the brand of Christianity. They all try to do that, but ultimately it's an individual process. You're basically talking about the top of the Maslow's hierarchy. That's self-actualization. Where are my values? Where did they come from? Did I earn them, or did somebody just give them to me? All that stuff, right?
Yeah, that's what I think is so fantastic about the manosphere, because you had like the Pat Stedman and Artful and those dudes in upstream Twitter, who were like, they were at the top of the self-actualization thing. Let me pull up Maslow's hierarchy.
They were among the first waves of guys that stormed the capital of self-actualization, is what you're saying.
No, and I have a greater point here, because you have those guys were all about the self-actualization thing. How do you become the greatest man based on Jordan Peterson? Below that, you have esteem. So that's respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, and freedom. And there you have a brand of guys who are doing the brand of meat thing. You know, here is the
president of the manosphere.
Here's me. Yeah, that type of thing. Then you have like love and belonging, which is, friendship, intimacy, family, sense of connection. There you have all the trad guys in their sheds. Like
and I'd argue the pickup guys and the getting more women too.
Yeah, and then you have like the next level is a safety need, personal security, employment, resources, health, and property. And there you have money Twitter, constantly focused on that. And then you have your psychological needs, air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, and reproduction. And there you have currently the Red Pill subreddit, which is about reading Evola and working out. Show physique. I don't care what you know or how much money you have, show physique. And with all this, you have a guy who tweets under @NorthernWild who tweeted at Pat Stedman while I was in the middle of his upstream Twitter rant. Just jerked off and smoked some weed. #downstream Twitter.
Yeah, Northern Wild. I remember him.
That was like the best tweet ever, because it was like no self-actualization, no esteem, no love and belonging, no safety needs, no higher aspiration, smoked a joint and jerked off. I'm going.
I like it. That reminds me of what did you say? I have like 2 episodes of the What's Up Carl when you did your monologue rants, when you were talking about show your face, and then your final line was, yeah, fuck your face. Fuck your face. I wrote books. What have you done? But hey, you can't sell, and that's the point. You can't sell any of this, and you shouldn't be able to sell any of this. The whole thing is hypothetical imperatives. If you have a problem with belongingness, Here's how you can get laid again. And don't think of it as I want to be the best guy. And that's the problem. Everybody takes their individual thing as soon as it gets any success and they blow it up into that's my self-actualization. It's like, no, money Twitter was just there so you're not starving eating top shelf ramen. It's not there because you want to be the best money Twitter that ever moneyed on Twitter. It's a goal. It's a tool and a means to an end. That's like where the praxeology thing comes in. The belongingness, learn how to be a good enough not piece of shit so that other people who are good, not pieces of shit, want to hang out with you. And where a girl would be willing to touch your dick for fun and not for money. You don't want to be the best day gamer that ever hasn't run day game in 10 fucking years drawing green lines all day. That's ridiculous. You just want to be the guy. Yeah, I've gotten laid enough that I turned down sex once because I just wanted to have a nap. That's the guy. It's a tool. Then you move up. Esteem. I want to be the best author that's ever written anything for men. It's like, no, I'm just writing books because it's something that's nice and it gets, some esteem. So it looks like I know what I'm talking about in the field that I try to study. And you move up from that. You don't make that your identity. And then self-actualization. Well, by the time you get there, nothing anybody says means anything to you because it's self-actualization, not you give me actualization. And the whole thing, as far down as you go, is just retards. Retards stopping on every step, telling you that this is the greatest step and they're the best guy on that step. You know what I mean? I always answer with, you know what I mean, because I'm always worried my rants have no anchor to reality at all.
And once you get to the top of that step too, you're like, yeah, I kind of like this step. I could make a living off this step. Let me buy the same site the other guy has, rig a podcast studio, and start podcasting all day.
Yeah. Which is ridiculous too, because there's no even hindsight behind that. Like, most guys who go to university become high school teachers. Most guys who get a PhD become first-year college teachers. Like, nobody's teaching at the stuff they just figured out yesterday. They have to have some time, some hindsight, some experience behind it, know what you don't know, and then you teach to a level like, a couple levels lower than what you have. And I don't like the guys that decide like, hey, I just slept with a girl yesterday. I'm going to sell you my pickup course today. It's like, fuck, slow down. I've been married for 2 years. Let me tell you guys how this works. I'm like, okay, I gotcha. The trick is just ride this honeymoon phase for 80 years and you guys are in there, man. Okay, I'll do what I can. Or what's the great one, the married ones? Dude, if you have this wife and she gains 5 pounds, just ditch the bitch and go fuck whores. And you're like, all right, so you're going to tell a guy who's got a house, 3 kids, a dog, $50,000 left on his mortgage, hey, your wife turned you down for sex one day. You better ditch her ass because this 29-year-old told me to.
No, I don't know. Capital, man. Catch up.
Yeah. That's why I hate alpha male. Like, I get the purpose of alpha in the sphere, but I think alpha male as like an aspirational model, I think is the worst thing that has ever come out of this space. And I think it's done far more damage than it ever has done good. And I cannot stand. And I know there's somebody in the chat with like alpha male patriarch or something. I fucking hate when I hear that shit because they're basically just feeding into the problem.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And I think everything we used to treat as kind of rules of thumb and it's kind of what's it called? The wheels on a tricycle thing. Yeah.
Oh, training wheels? Or
we treated as, yeah, anything. What we thought of as training wheels have gone to become laws of the universe, and they were never supposed to be fucking laws of the universe. They were supposed to be training wheels. They're there to guide you so you don't fall on your fucking face, but you're eventually supposed to take them off. You're not supposed to aspire to be them.
Exactly. And you're supposed to understand that it's not meant to be an accurate, factual statement to begin with. Alpha male is not, there is no guy who exists that's 100% alpha male. It's a concept. It's like, what would Jesus do? Do you think there really is guys acting 100% like Jesus is? It's like, no, it's just there. So when you walk around, you think, what is a Christian thing to do instead of doing coke? Maybe just donate to the church or some shit like that. Shout out, by the way, one man. Thank you. The $20 super chat. It's interesting when the hierarchy of needs is met. There's no need to go heavy in any one thing, in my opinion. Absolutely right. It's just tools, man. That's like the mechanic who's like, no, crescent wrench or get the fuck out. How stupid would he sound? Actually, how stupid does he sound? Carl, are you a mechanic type?
If all you have is a hammer, every problem is a nail. And I think that's kind of more alpha thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of carries over into the show we're going to be starting in like half an hour on Troy's channel.
Oh yeah.
is that once you get into that and you start thinking in terms of like manosphere training wheels as your guiding light in the universe, then you do stupid shit like scream at someone at a restaurant because they ask your girl what she would like to eat instead of asking you, expecting you to order for her. Or you do things like your girl cheats on you and you beat up and kill her and the guy she was cheating with, and you get locked up for life, and then suddenly you're the girl in prison because you didn't do your lifting. Or alpha
Dude, how many
male.
examples do you want to use? We can go all day.
Yeah, because like the whole thing with more alpha is kind of like, imagine, do you remember this? I think it's a Tom and Jerry cartoon or something like that from when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Where one guy pulls out like a small knife, the other guy pulls out a bigger knife, then the guy pulls out a gun, then the other guy a bigger gun, and then one guy.
Eventually, it's like the world-sized guns coming around. I remember that one.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same thing here, where like everyone is just trying to escalate more than the other one, and no one's like, "Why are we doing this? Is there any point in escalating it? And why was McDonald's versus Burger King for lunch such a big deal in the fucking first place?"
Well, and then why did I pick this particular guy to compete with? That's, I think, what people don't forget or what don't remember. Like Pat Stedman, for example. I'll own this one. We kind of had this little competition going with him for a while there. The upstream Twitter, kind of ridiculous. And we're like, we want to beat this. And the dude in New Jersey lives with his mom. It's like, why the fuck would I pick that as my arch nemesis? Or a lot of guys. Like, why is fight feminism your, like, MO? Why did you pick a 30-year-old chick who's miserable and drunk and day drunk as your arch nemesis? What does that say about your own self-worth?
You know,
Like, imagine Professor Xavier. I don't want to fight Magneto. I'd rather fight like that one guy with the pot on his head rambling on the street corner. It's like, yeah, man, X-Men are really kicking ass. There's a reference for people there.
well, you create this us and them thing, and then you get all the other guys to hate the other group, and they rely on you to tell them the worldview, and you create a cult. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and you see tons of it. And I realize their critique is never critique either. It's always just show somebody doing something, and then with like, guys, can you believe this? Literally just point and laugh at somebody. Whatever he says, it's something we don't like. You're literally defining yourself by hating everything about the other person, as opposed to, I think this take was bad. I think this idea was bad. Going to jail is not a good idea. Any of that shit. Because that'd be useful.
Because I do think I kind of accept the criticism that, you know, the manosphere is cultish.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think the manosphere as a whole is cultish. I think the manosphere is composed of many cults.
Fucking the worst cults
So
ever,
if you
too.
don't know the specific... Yeah, but it's like the guys on the Reddit right now, they're a cult.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guys who watch Rule Zero are kind of a cult. The guys who watch the other convention that shall not be named are kind of a cult. The guys
You guys in the chat, though, you're not the cult. Only they're the cult. Fuck those guys.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't specifically call them cults. I said cult-ish, which means it's not full like Jim Jones drinking the Kool-Aid, but it's always defining a greater enemy. And when there's no like external enemy, then we start infighting. Because then, you know, Rolo had this take, which I think was retarded. And then some other guys like, yeah, well, your take on Rolo's take was retarded. And then in the end, everyone started dunking on Pat Stedman for some reason.
Hey, man, something's got to unite us.
Manosphere.
Actually, I wish it was the case. That's how crazy it got. Guy goes to jail. His kid's like 3 weeks old, and people are still saying at least he has balls. I'm like, weren't you guys talking about the sanctity of family fucking yesterday? All of a sudden now avoiding your kid by going to prison's the coolest thing ever because you have balls? Our cult. That's why I don't think it's a cult space, because cults at least are on point. These guys are just fucking everywhere, man. Yeah, today I'll say something the opposite of what I said yesterday. Nah, cults wouldn't do that shit. They have fucking commandments, you know? No, absolutely not. See here. Here's the question. Should I stop watching this? No, that's what a cult would do. A cult would stop watching this show. A cult wouldn't hit like. And I don't want that for you guys, because I what's that? I love you. The dude who's filming it out of his surf shed.
You're very special.
Yeah, very special. Isaac, thanks for the $5 super chat, man. Thanks for all the free content. Feel like I'm turning my life around. I'm finding Roll-and-All, soon to be broker at 22. Congrats. I'll tell you though, it's not free. This content isn't free, dude. We took 1 hour and 58 minutes and 48 seconds of your time for this thing. So don't ever think of your time as free. You're a broker, but you probably already know that. But I get what you're saying. Thank you. Ooh, thank you very much, Pete.
I like doing these shows. Well, I kind of like doing these shows though, just on the basis that sitting here and making fun of what we do here is a great way to stay humble.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hell, half of your rants, I'm looking around to see what stuff of mine you're talking about in specific. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch.
Stop saying masculinity. I hate to go like on the feminist hype train here, but masculinity is a philosophical construct.
Yeah.
It's a gathering of behaviors that are usually exhibited by the masculine gender, or sex, rather, to be used in terminology.
I can make it sound masculine. Call it a Texas sharpshooter.
Yeah,
everything guys do, throw out a big fucking target around it and call that masculinity. That's all it is. If guys all wore dresses tomorrow, dresses would be masculine. Pink used to be masculine. Do you remember that before like the 1950s? Guys, baby kids used to wear pink.
Hey, guys back in the 1700s wore frills and sequins and all kinds of shit.
Oh, yeah. That was masculine as hell. Suntans used to be feminine, or suntans used to be, yeah, like what pores did. Masculine men used to have no tan. They used to lemon their skin so that way it'd be bleached whiter.
But focus on two things, like agency, three things: agency, accountability, and boundaries. I think are the best ones.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think that's a good ending point on this one. We're on time right now. Got to go have some breakfast and then go in there with Troy and John. John's in the chat, by the way. He's absolutely right. +1 if you like the show. I think John's you're back in Japan now for good. So we're going to have like 100%.
Press the like button for fuck's sake. Not one. Press the like button for fuck's sake. We got to have more ones than we have likes. What the hell?
You sons of bitches. John fucked us. I knew it. All right. I'm going to end the show. We'll see you guys. It's Troy's channel on the half hour. Knowing when to cut your losses, tactical retreats, knowing when not to push you, all that kind of stuff. You're going to love it. It's going to be a lot of fun on there. And Carl's actually going to be there. So